There she is. Yay. All right, let's get started here. So I'm not looking right now. I hope the people that I'm talking to now have finished their Romeo and Juliet study guide that we're going over today, because we're definitely going to review Act 5. We need to wrap up and start our new unit for quarter 2, since we're a little bit behind there, but that's fine. So vocab lesson 6 is posted. Let me double check that. Oh, I have not posted that. I will do that as soon as I finish class. Okay, but that's not due till, of course, later this week. Let's do by Thursday night, and I'll put that up as soon as I finish talking to you guys. Grammar lesson 8 is posted, of course, and that is due by tomorrow night. So make sure you do that. And other than that, we're just going to talk our way through Romeo and Juliet Act 5. And that'll wrap up that unit. We're not going to do a big comprehensive test on Romeo and Juliet or anything like that. I feel like there's any reason for that. So let's just go into the study guide for the assignment here. So we were given, we're supposed to do the discussion prompt, which I saw more people doing, so that was good. Just a sec here, get you guys on a grid. At the end, the prince is saying, "Where be these enemies?" Capulet, Montague, he's talking to them, right? The heads of the family. "See what a scourge is laid upon your hate, that heaven finds means to kill your joys with love." He's scolding him, right? Like, this is your fault. "And I, for winking at your discords too, have lost a brace of kinsmen." Who did the prince lose? Why does he say, "I have lost a brace of kinsmen"? Like, I have lost some family members too. Who did the prince lose? You may know. It's kind of an obscure question, but I'm just curious. 2 different guys died who were nephews of the prince. Can anybody name one of them? I'll give you a hint. It had to do with the fight between Tybalt and Romeo. What led up to that? Who was Romeo's other friend who died then? Ah, disappointed, guys. It's Mercutio, right? He got between Romeo and Tybalt, and then Tybalt kind of accidentally stabs him under Romeo's arm. And the other one was Paris, who died just now in Act 5, and we'll talk about that. So the prince is pointing out, as he's angry at these 2 families, he has lost kinsmen too, right? "All are punished," he says. "We have all been punished by your hate." Capulet, "O brother Montague, give me thy hand. Give me your hand. This is my daughter's." So Capulet says this. "Brother Montague, this is my daughter's jointure, for no more can I demand." And then Montague, Romeo's father, says, "But I can give you more. I will raise her," Juliet's, "statue in pure gold, and whilst Verona by that name is known, there should be no figure at such rate be set as that of true and faithful Juliet." So they're kind of giving tribute to one another's children instead of hating each other. And the prince says, "A glooming peace what this morning brings." Glooming peace. That's kind of what you call an oxymoron, right? Like 2 words that don't seem like they should be able to go together. But it's true, right? There's peace, but it's gloomy because they lost these 2, young people. "The sun for sorrow will not show his head. Go hence to have more talk of these sad things. Some shall be pardoned, some punished, for never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo." And those are really famous lines at the end of the play there. They always emphasize those and have the prince kind of do that closing speech, and then the credits roll with, whatever music and stuff. So passage concludes the final scene of the play. Realizing their grudge has cost their beloved children their lives, Capulet and Montague join hands, plan to honor each other's child. Capulet notes that Romeo and Juliet gave their lives to end the family's hatred. Therefore, as the prince notes, the play ends with a glooming peace. So the prompt was, in your opinion, does Romeo and Juliet conclude with what you call a happy ending or not? Consider the resolution of the grudge, the tragic deaths that brought about the reconciliation. Support your answer with evidence in the final scene as well as the rest of the play. So even if it's just a short answer, I'll come on screen share for a sec here. Happy ending or sad ending, and why? You may, of course, chat. Paris? Logan's asking about Paris. Well, we'll talk about him in a minute. If you read Act 5 carefully, you would know who Paris is. Plus, Paris was supposed to marry Juliet, if you recall. Sad because they died, certainly, right? But we kind of already knew they were going to die, didn't we? We did, right? We already knew they were going to die. It tells us that at the beginning. It's a point of how it happens. Any other opinions there? I mean, let's at least articulate how it is sad they don't get to run away and live their life together. Certainly, could we express in some way how there is somewhat of a happy resolution at the same time, since we kind of already knew they were going to die? It is moving, right? Because they almost make it, right? If Juliet would have woken up, what, 2 minutes earlier, everything might have been fine. That's when you kind of feel like it seems like fate is just not going to let them win. How is it also kind of a happy ending? What happens at the end there, especially right there in that passage? If they did run away, it would be a sad also to other people. Good thought. Logan? Shelby says sad because they don't get to love each other and live together. Yes, sad, 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 sad. Nobody's saying how it could be considered. Some aspect of this is good, isn't it? Even though they didn't make it, it fulfilled the friar's original purpose in marrying them, didn't it? Ironically, I mean, they died, but what happens that's good? Come on, guys, you know this. What did it finally do? What did it finally end? Thank you. The families make peace. Ethan Wicke. Okay, so it's, you know, to overstate it, you might even call it kind of a bittersweet ending, right? But to me, what happens is, you know, you're reminded that, well, I guess we knew they were going to make it, right? You get all caught up in it. And you think, oh, maybe, you know, maybe they'll make it, even though down deep inside, you remember, oh, wait, I truly know in my subconscious that they won't. But it does end the decades and generations long feud between the families. So it's kind of a, if we can call it a silver lining, sort of is. Okay, back to screen share. It all started because they were enemies, and that's what made us sad. True. Yep. The fact that they were enemies made it impossible for Romeo and Juliet to be together. That's a good point too. All right, let's go to the questions. How does Romeo convince the apothecary? The apothecary is like he's like the druggist, the pharmacist that Romeo goes to get poison to take himself because he's been misinformed that Juliet is dead, right? Let's talk about how, let's see. Well, we'll find that out in a minute, right? So he's mistakenly informed by Balthasar, his friend, kind of servant or whatever, because Balthasar doesn't know any better. He sees that Juliet is dead. They're having a funeral for her. He doesn't know that it's a trick. The only people that know the plan are Friar and Romeo, right? Not even the nurse knows about that plan. So Romeo goes to this guy, tries to get poison from him. And how does he, the apothecary notes that it's death to anybody who spreads these poisons in Verona or Mantua, right? Or Romeo convinces him. It's pretty simple. How does he convince him? What does he tell him he'll give a lot of? Selling stuff. Yeah, good, Ethan. He tells him that he's not doing so well, right? So selling, if he sells the stuff and he gives him money, then he'll be a little bit less poor, right? And then he kind of makes a dark joke about how gold is the real poison, right? And greed and things like that. Convinces him by talking about the poor guy needs money, and him, and then he agrees. Good job, guys. You guys are funny. Lots of chatting. Don't want to use our voices though. Maybe I should offer double participation for using our voice. But chatting's better than nothing. All right, so 2, what did prevent the friar's letter from reaching Romeo? And how does that maybe kind of feed into that whole feeling that fate is in control? Do we have straight what happened? The friar sent Friar John to tell him, right? Balthasar got there before he did and got in and told Romeo the misinformation that Juliet was dead, right? What kept Friar John from getting in after Balthasar already got in? Maybe we need to go text on that, which I do have right here. Oh, I forgot to screen share. Hold on. breaks the news to him. Romeo goes to the apothecary. See that scene. Okay. Friar John comes back to Friar Lawrence. What says Romeo? Friar John says, going to find a barefoot brother out, one of our order to associate me here in the city, visiting the sick and finding him. The searchers of the town suspected that we were both in a house where the infectious pestilence did reign, sealed up the doors and would not let us forth, so that my speed demanded to have there stayed. So somehow Balthazar got into the city, and then very soon after Balthazar got into the city, Friar John got there, and they say, nope, you can't come in because of the infectious pestilence. What was going on? Because they were too scared they were going to spread the infection. Good. What infection would that be? What would be going on in the during this time, 1300s, late Middle Ages? What was killing off? Kind of a timely plot turn here for us, right? What was killing off like huge swaths of people? Not the flu. Nope, not influenza. There was a big influenza. There's been lots of big influenza outbreaks. There was a really big one in was it 1919, I think? The plague, yes, the bubonic plague, Black Death, right? And so they didn't know a whole lot about it, but they knew that people need to stay away from each other, right? Until coincidentally, Friar couldn't get in there. Balthazar gets in, Friar doesn't, and that's what causes the misinformation. Okay, back to the questions. Next one was, when Romeo is trying to convince Paris to go away and not fight with him, why does Romeo tell Paris that he loves Paris better than himself? So what was going on here was Romeo, of course, goes to the tomb to take the poison, take his own life, to be with Juliet in death if he can't be with her in life, as they've threatened to do several times, right? And then Paris arrives. Why does Paris arrive and come into the tomb in the first place? What the heck is he there for? He's the nephew of the prince, but what else is he? As in, what was he supposed to do really soon, like the next day? He was destined, but had been given permission to, and was supposed to do what the next day? I'm watching my chat window. He was bringing flowers, correct? For whom and why? Obviously, that would be for Juliet, because he was supposed to what? What was he supposed to be?
Marry her.
Yeah, thank you, sir. He was supposed to marry her. Remember they went through the whole thing about moving up the wedding and, talking to the dad and all that stuff. So this poor sucker is just there to like say goodbye to his fiance, right? He has no idea what's going on, let alone that Romeo had already married Juliet before he was even engaged to her, right? So he's in the dark, right? He's not necessarily like an evil character, but then he sees a Montague in the Capulet tomb. Well, how do you expect him to react, right? Now, Romeo says, there's several things he says, tempt not a desperate man. He says, I love you more than I love myself. What the answer to the question that we're looking for there is what he's doing is he's reflecting on how Romeo came there to take his own life, right? And you don't want to mess with a guy who doesn't care about whether he lives or dies or not if you're going to clash, right? And so they fight, and Romeo kills Paris. No matter what he does, he just keeps on messing stuff up. Okay, so that's what happens there. Then he sees Juliet, and then there's this long sequence. It's just terrible. Just before Juliet takes her own life. Let's kind of back up in the text just to kind of review that real fast. So the timing of this, I hope you read it straight through for real, because it's just, it's beautiful in a way, but then it's like torturous and so suspenseful at the same time. And the movie does such a great job doing this. So he convinces Balthazar to stay outside, runs into Paris, kills Paris. Paris dies. Okay. And then he's standing over Juliet. She could wake up any second, right? He says, here lies Juliet. Her beauty makes this vault a feasting presence full of light. Death, lie thou there by a dead man interred. And then he goes on talking about how beautiful she looks, right? Death that has sucked the honey of thy breath hath no power upon thy beauty. thou art not conquered. Beauty's ensign is crimson in thy lips and in thy cheeks. He's just remarking on how beautiful she still looks. It's like, oh, she's so beautiful. It doesn't even look like she's dead. Now that's huge dramatic irony, right? Because what do we know? You say it. Huge dramatic irony here when the audience knows something a character doesn't. She looks so full of life and so beautiful because we know she's really what? She isn't dead. Thank you, Cammie. Of course she's not dead, right? She's gonna wake up any minute. That's what's so torturous about the scene. So she doesn't, right? So going back to that question. What is the friar? Let's see. Okay, so Juliet wakes up, finds Romeo dead. He takes the poison. She wakes up right after. And then she's going to take the dagger and she says, I am thy sheath, right? I'm going to be the sheath of the dagger so she can be with Romeo because he really is dead now. What does the friar tell her that she should do? You guys tell me that. You have that? That's pretty specific, detailed question. Tells her that she should run off and join what? Shelby, you got it? Good, yeah. She should go off to a convent, right? And just forget about all this. Friar's panicking at this point, right? He doesn't wait for her. He says, I dare no longer stay. I dare no longer stay. She's still in there. He runs off. She takes her own life and puts the dagger in her heart. Ugh. And then the last question, like from the first passage we looked at here, all are punished, right? What is he suggesting the captains of Montague are being punished for? Obviously, that's for their hate that's been going for decades and generations. What is he, the prince, being punished for? Well, he says, I stood winking at your discords. In other words, I didn't take this seriously. I didn't clamp down on enough. Seems like he did, right? But it never did work. He never did make it stop. And he takes responsibility too. All are punished. So one of the themes of Romeo and Juliet, it's not only that love can push you toward maybe irrational decisions, but really that, hatred that people don't let go for a long time can have horrible destructive effects, maybe that nobody can stop, right, no matter how hard they try. That's it, guys. We finished Romeo and Juliet. No homework tonight. We'll do Newsella and we'll start a new unit. And you got grammar and vocab due those next 2 nights. So dry your eyes or go have a good cry, and I'll see you tomorrow.